Well, good morning. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for the very warm reception. It's so lovely to meet your esteemed Premier. I told him on the way in, I thought his performance at the first Minister's meeting recently has been outstanding, simply outstanding. A lot of Canadians have been rocked, frankly, about his wisdom and his approach to some of the challenges we face. So I just want to give him a very sincere shout out. Thank him very much for his leadership. Thank you for joining us here at this, of course, important Emerson port of entry in Manitoba, right across from Pembina. I feel very much at home, not because I spent much time in Manitoba, but because one of my sons is a CDSA officer and spent 7 years on the line in La Colle and Saint-Armand, and a year as the supervisor at Roxham Road during the pandemic. So he's one of your brothers, and I'm very proud of the work that he does, and I'm very proud of the work that you do here. I know quite a bit about what you do and how you do it. I know a little bit about your agency, having reviewed it as the chair of Canada's National Security and Intelligence Committee. So I'm very, very pleased to be here with you today and to share a couple of words. We know this is one of the busiest ports along the Canada-U.S. border, west of the Great Lakes, 24/7. Makes it popular for tourism and cross-border shoppers. I heard a little bit about that earlier from the Premier. Also represents a large trading corridor that links the Prairies with the U.S. and Mexico. I understand over 50 Border Services officers are here, and they're working to protect us and facilitate trade. And just over the border, the U.S. CBP colleagues are doing the same. There's a lot on the line, a lot at stake. You might have heard something about yesterday. We stopped some tariffs being applied on both of our economies. And that's a good thing because last year nearly $3.6 billion worth of trade and about 400,000 people crossed the Canada-U.S. border every day. Canada and the U.S. have built the most successful economic, military, and security partnership the world has ever seen. And I believe it's still the most successful the world has in place today. We share the longest border in the world, and together we manage what's also the world's most secure border. Every day, you folks, RCP folks, patrol the border to keep us safe, prevent criminals, guns, and drugs from entering and harming our communities. Au nom de l'ensemble des Canadiens et des Canadiennes, je tiens à remercier ces agents pour le travail assidu qu'ils accomplissent et les services essentiels qu'ils assurent. While our border is already secure, we recognize there's more that we can do. What was our objective yesterday? Stop the tariffs. What's our objective today? Stop the tariffs. What's our objective tomorrow? Stop the tariffs. We're going to do what we have to do in order to strengthen this border with your help, because there's so much on the line for everyday Canadians. Recently, in my own constituency office, I had a number of business owners calling in tears, worried about whether they were going to let families go out of work or move their businesses to the United States. This is real for us. It's real. And we're making that very well known in the United States, in D.C., and at the White House. After the Prime Minister spoke with the President yesterday, we committed to a set of measures that would further strengthen our security at the border. This is going to expand on the $1.3 billion plan we announced some time ago, early December. First, the Prime Minister signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl that will be backed by a $200 million investment. We're going to be appointing our first fentanyl czar. The words are chosen carefully. Fentanyl czar, who will serve as the main interlocutor between the Canadian and U.S. governments and will enhance our collaboration in combating fentanyl. Fentanyl is an extraordinarily dangerous drug. And I mean extraordinarily dangerous drug. In very small volumes, very small pills, is extremely lethal. We're listing organized crime cartels as terrorist entities under the criminal code. Listing is an important tool that will support our criminal investigations and strengthen the RCP's ability to prevent and disrupt the activities of cartels. It also allows us to more immediately follow the money. Canada is committed to ensuring 24/7 eyes on the border through the round-the-clock surveillance commitment. In combination with others, nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are working on our border. We're mobilizing law enforcement and civilian forces with new and modernized equipment. You've heard about that. A couple of Black Hawk helicopters, 60 drones, not purchased from China, built in the United States, to national security standards in both the United States and Canada. And finally, yesterday, the Prime Minister and President agreed to launch the Canada-U.S. Joint Strike Force on fentanyl. That strike force is going to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. It'll include 10 teams of law enforcement, border security, and intel professionals across Canada and the United States. As I mentioned, all of these build on and expand on our $1.3 billion border plan. Under this plan, we've already, first, brought in more personnel. Second, delivered more tools and resources. Third, more advanced technology. Fourth, as I mentioned, drones. Fifth, surveillance equipment. Sixth, K9 teams, helicopters, and more. Aujourd'hui, je suis accompagné, comme je l'ai mentionné, du Premier ministre provincial Wab Kinew, du ministre Terry Duguid, le ministre du Manitoba, et le député Ben Carr de Winnipeg. My colleagues here represent the fact that we're working seamlessly together. All orders of government. If we stopped the tariffs yesterday, we stopped them because of the Team Canada approach. A lot's on the line for our country. So here we are. We are moving forward. We're moving forward with Health Canada, standing up new laboratory systems so we can track and trace the origins of precursors that are being used in the production of fentanyl. We're working with our American counterparts in their laboratories in Virginia to be able to get trained up and have equal abilities on both sides of the border, because the fentanyl scourge and tragedy is not just a Canadian one. It's a joint one. It's one that we share together. Our families are affected profoundly by this. The President has spoke about this. We've listened. President Trump has a job to do. Let me just be clear about this for a second. He ran in an election. He had a platform. He made promises to his people, and in his mind, he's delivering on those promises. We need to be respectful of that. But we also have to cooperate and deal with some of these challenges that we've dealt with for 150 years together. It's important to keep this longest undefended border in the world, the longest undefended border in the world. Well, illegal crossings from Canada to the U.S. are already down by 89% since July 2024. As I mentioned, 60 new drones, 2 new Black Hawks. These are going to help us disrupt more illegal cross-border activity. Just to be clear as well, maybe to repeat it for effect, less than 1% of the fentanyl entering the United States is forthcoming from Canada. We have challenges with drugs coming from the United States. Large volumes of narcotics. 1,000 kilograms of cocaine seized in the last several months in Toronto and in Coutts in Alberta. The American administration understands this. So do we. We'll work together on making sure that that's also dealt with. And for that matter, we're also very cognizant of the problem we have with the importation and the smuggling of unlicensed weapons into Canada from the United States. We'll be cooperating with the United States authorities on that front as well, something raised by the Prime Minister with President Trump yesterday. We're increasing removals in Canada this year by 25%. Last year, more than 16,800 people from Canada. We're up 25%. That's the plan, that's the target going forward. I want to close with this. We're in this and on this journey together, both in Canada, at all levels of government, across society. It's a whole of country approach. But we're also in this with our largest trading partner, our closest ally, and our best friend, the United States of America. We need to keep reminding our families, our friends, our business colleagues, folks we work with in law enforcement, that that is the relationship that's at stake here. It's a strong one and a good one, and not one we want to compromise. And finally, I want to say this, if I could. Through Premier Kinew and through all Manitobans who might be listening, thank you for your help. Thank you for joining us in this Team Canada effort. Thank you for your investment of time. Thank you for your frontline folks who are helping us close on this, monitor this border, and do what we have to do to keep our country sovereign, strong, and compassionate. Thank you very much for having us, folks. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Terry Duguid. I'm the Member of Parliament for Winnipeg South and the Minister for Prairies Economic Development Canada and the Minister for Sport. It's wonderful to be here today in Emerson. I really want to thank my colleague, my longtime friend of over 20 years, David McGuinty, for coming a long way to see us today and for his important message about our strong border and the fact that we're going to be making it even stronger. And it's a big thank you to all of you who are gathered today and the great work that you do to keep us safe, to keep trade flowing. Our federal and provincial partners, our Indigenous partners who are participating in this important effort that we're talking about today. And of course, great to stand alongside Premier Kinew and Minister McGuinty to showcase this Team Canada approach that we're highlighting today. And wonderful to be back in Emerson. Of course, I'm a cross-border shopper as well, like so many Manitobans, and been through this beautiful town many times. And it's a busy place. The 5th busiest crossing in Canada, 2nd busiest west of the Great Lakes. 1,200 trucks passing through here every day, carrying $30 million worth of goods. Some staggering statistics just that highlight the importance of this port to the economy of Manitoba and Canada. $14 billion each year passing through this port of entry to the United States. We import $17 billion through the United States to Canada. And of course, we are in the heart of what we call, the Premier and I, the Mid-Continent Corridor, which begins up in Churchill and ends in Monterrey, Mexico. It is a corridor that certainly builds prosperity, employs a lot of people, and so many of our products come up from the United States and are traded across our great country, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Grain, livestock, energy products. Our economies are incredibly interlinked and integrated. I was down in Minnesota in 2024. I visited the St. Cloud New Flyer Industries plant down there, employing thousands of people. And of course, we have in Transcona, we have where my good friend Jenna Lee Boychuk, I was at her wedding 30 years ago with a little baby who's now 30 years old. So it was great to see her this morning and have a few reflections about our hometown. But those two plants work seamlessly, parts cross the border, and we produce buses for the North American continent that are sold in cities throughout North America. The oats we grow here in Manitoba, we send them down to the General Mills plant in Minneapolis. They come back to us as Cheerios and as granola bars. So we are incredibly integrated. I could talk about 4 or 5 more industries. And so the tariffs that were announced by President Trump had the potential to be incredibly disruptive. We got a bit of a reprieve, as David has said, but that threat still hangs over us. And so we have to be vigilant and Again, thank you to Premier Kinew, all of the premiers, municipal leaders, our citizens, for really standing up for Canada over the last week or so, and to show that we will stand firm in defending our country, defending our interests, and defending our jobs. As Minister McGuinty said, there are genuine concerns about the border that we are highlighting today. We do believe it is a strong border, but that it can be made stronger, and so we're here today to show that we take this issue very, very seriously, and hence the $1.3 billion border plan. And we're learning so much more about the good work that you're doing here in Emerson, the good work by the RCMP to tackle issues such as human smuggling, drug trafficking, weapons, and other issues which jeopardize the safety of Canadians and Americans alike. So it's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to the table talk exercise and learning more, and I would invite the Premier to the podium.
Well, good day, everybody. I'm Wab Kinew. I'm the Premier of Manitoba. Everybody's talking about tariffs, and on the weekend when the announcement came in, I was teasing a friend of mine who's a politician in North Dakota. I said, great, now I can't go to Shields. So yesterday the news came down, and I texted him again. Shields is back on, right? So I think got to keep a sense of humor during the current moment, but it's nice to see that buy local sentiment that Canadians are feeling right now. But the work that you do here at the border is going to be integral to us strengthening the relationship with the United States of America, our closest ally, most important trading partner. And I think that as the province of Manitoba, we're really happy to step up and to partner with law enforcement, conservation officers, emergency measures organization officials to support a strong and secure border here and across Manitoba. We have to have 24/7 eyes on the border. And the only way that we're going to do that is if we work together. And so to see this collaboration in person, CBSA, RCMP, Customs and Border Patrol, from our American friends, conservation officers, EMO, First Nations police, everybody working together, that's how we're going to get it done. And let's be clear, the reason we're doing this is because this is good for Manitobans. Manitobans want to see fentanyl taken off the streets. Manitobans want a secure border. And if we can make those investments at the same time that we're strengthening the relationship with the United States of America, helping our economy, then it's all the better. So I think the main message that I want to share with you folks here today is just a message of gratitude and to say thank you for your service. The work that you do each and every day makes our country safer, makes our First Nations communities, our towns, our cities, our neighborhoods safer, but it also makes us very proud as Canadians and as neighbors to the U.S. So thank you for your service.
I believe that wraps up the remarks portion of this, and we're now going to transition over to the next previous week.
Send everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep it more. If everybody steps back, we're going to swing this curtain around all the way. Sorry.
Nope, yeah, I'm just gonna.
A barrel of bins that don't tip over.
The hazardous material. Nuclear waste.
I think they're going to
So what they do, are they test it there and put it in? Yeah.
That's real fentanyl, we're all in trouble. How many different substances that thing can detect?
Many.
How many? Like,
Many. It all depends on what it's calibrated for.
does it calibrate for one thing at one time, or no? Like dozens, hundreds?
Dozens.
Dozens, yes.
Also explosive.
Yes. Yeah. Radioactive materials?
Yep. Just wait.
For our guests.
These guys are way more important. Okay, thank you. Steve, right?
Steve,
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, thank you.
Where do you want to stand, over here?
You can stand right here if you'd like,
Okay.
sir. Wherever you'd like. I'll stand right in front of you. At some point, I'm gonna use the machine. so-
Get away from the machine.
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much for everyone being here today. You know, we're going to demonstrate this machine for us here. It's one of the devices that CBSA has that intercepts and identifies highly toxic substances. So this device here is a tabletop desktop analyzer. It takes non-visible particles. When the officers swab it, all of our officers are trained on it, and it will identify certain substances that are present. One of them mainly being fentanyl analogs, and opioids. So the officers themselves, it also acts as a health and safety aspect and role for us as officers, so that we can understand what it is that we're dealing with before we actually get into the actual.
I see you got a Narcan
Yes.
sheet up on the wall, so I guess there's a risk when you're working with these substances for
Absolutely,
your officers.
absolutely. There's always a risk when the officers, they're all trained, all of the officers are trained on the use of Narcan as well. There's obviously, you know, when we're dealing with unknown substances, we expect, we anticipate the worst and we work our way down gradually. But it is one of the best devices that we have that allows us to detect basically non-visible particles. So we'll use it to swab all sorts of items. We'll swab steering wheels, it could be cell phones, it could be driver's licenses. So we will go through a quick demonstration here to identify or to show how the machine itself works. So for us, we take one of our swabs. First thing we do to ensure that it's sterile is we'll run it through our machine. The machine itself will analyze it. So the machines themselves are dual mode, meaning that they'll identify illicit drugs, controlled substances, and also explosives. So the sample itself here, no alarm detected. That would be a good day for us.
Okay.
So what I will do is I will simulate with our pen here.
Can you do it?
Sure.
Your back is perfect.
I will simulate with this pen here. So this pen itself here has a substance on it that allows the machine to calibrate so that we know that it's performing adequately. So I will put a little bit on the machine or the swab.
What is that substance?
It's just a chemical compound that the machine
Zeros the
identifies.
machine?
Well, it actually detects it. So you'll see the machine here will alarm. So now it's alarming right now that it's a verification mode and that it's done that. But the alarm itself is the exact same alarm it would have if it was a fentanyl, or if it was one of the fentanyl analogs, or an opioid, or heroin, or cocaine, or explosives. It will give us the actual type of substance that it has identified. So from there, the officers, depending on what it is and the quantities that they have, will be able to now examine that item in a more strategic and a controlled setting.
You know where you're going.
Exactly. So, you know, for the sake of today's demonstration, I'm not donning any of our personal protection equipment, which we would have on at this point if this came back as, say, fentanyl or opioid, depending on the quantities. And then from there, we would move to this machine over to the left here, which is a ventless area that basically extracts all of the dust, any type of particles, up and away from the officer so that we're able to examine it safely without having to expose ourselves. Yeah. And at that point, that's when the officers would have all of their gloves, all of their breathing apparatuses, Tyvek suits, absolutely the whole 9 yards.
Like a lab.
100%, yeah.
So
And from, sorry?
Go ahead.
I was just saying, from there, depending on what we have, if we still can't identify what it is, CBSA does have labs that are in certain locations in the country that we would then securely package and ship those items out, a sample out, so that we'd be able to exactly know. We won't release any good until we know exactly what it is, so that we're not potentially putting people at harm.
Guys, is there a sharing of information between what agents would find in Manitoba versus BC or Quebec to see if there is this flow of that same substance happening throughout the country?
Absolutely. I mean, the CVSA works very closely with our partners. We have our own intelligence teams that work within our own areas and region that work with the RCMP and their intelligence partners and/or domestic law enforcement agencies. So we are all sharing information to be able to identify those trends and patterns so that we can respond.
And that would go with our American Street as well.
Yes.
Which way?
Yeah. When it comes to our, we all have MOUs that we're able to share information collaboratively so that we can address the issue itself as one big team.
So biologics, it would not.
No.
No biologics. So that's another technology and
Yeah.
always fearful of the...
That's where our lab would come in.
Yeah.
If we are not able to with this device,
Right.
we do have other items that we are able to test certain drugs.
Take it to the
narcotics.
National Microbiology
Yeah,
Lab.
well, we have narcotic identification kits that are other chemicals that if we have an idea of what it is, that allows us to do some field testing.
Yeah.
That being said, if we can't identify what it is, for us, this is a great tool for us in contributing to the safe, secure, and the integrity of our borders. So it's much appreciated. We have a number of these across our region and across the district at strategic locations.
U.S. technology? Or
You know what? I'm not 100% sure.
I can tell you it is.
It is. Okay. Smith's Detection, yeah.
Smith's is manufacturing, it's a major company in Texas.
Oh, okay.
They are mobile as well.
All right.
So we are able to, some of the locations that don't have, we are able to take
Right.
and go and to utilize them there. So
How long would it take to train an officer on the implementation of that system?
on this, within a day, easily within a day. It's about an hour and a half in terms of classroom, and then about another hour or so of actually in the field of going through the motions of testing. And that comes with also, ensuring that they understand how it operates from a court perspective to make sure that everything we're doing is legal and in incremental steps as we move through the process.
So has there been a recent incident where this machine has...
In all honesty,
Detected.
we use these machines daily. They are so, they pick up such a minuscule, like microgram level that, in all honesty, we could probably swab random things and it would come up. Now, it doesn't mean that there's anything there, and obviously we always have to balance those false positives because there are certain chemicals that potentially can. So for us, it's one indicator. It's not the end all be all. It just allows us to move on to our next step and do it so safely.
And you would probably look more closely if you...
Absolutely, it's 100% yes. Yeah, and we've got a number of them here in our location, garage, in all the buildings, and like I said, they're mobile, so we are able to move them as we go. Okay.
Thanks for your good work.
My final question was related to this.
Yes.
Which I haven't seen.
It's from our indigenous affairs center. CVSA obviously is a big component of reconciliation, and we have a tremendous amount of pride and relationship with our indigenous.
I haven't seen that particular one.
Wilson River, I'm sure there's employees that are part of CVSA.
Yeah, we've got actually all across the nation. I mean, we have a number of employees that are indigenous here in Emerson, Winnipeg, all across the country. We're through the many voices, one mind, agenda. We are the 5 pillars that we're trying to make sure that our workforce is representative of the areas that we work and respectful of those practices.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, nice Irish name.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a Winnipeg.
You said that to me too, so.
Okay, which way now?
Okay.
Hi.
Time to go?
I think so, yeah.
All right, let's go.
Good morning. Is it, what time is it?
It is afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. J'aimerais commencer en français. Est-ce qu'il y a des francophones ici aujourd'hui? Excellent. Bienvenue à Radio-Canada. Écoute, on est ici aujourd'hui. On a fait une petite tournée à nos bureaux sur la frontière américaine à Emerson. Nous avons vu directement le travail de nos agents frontaliers le travail de la GRC, le travail d'équipe qui continue entre le fédéral, le provincial, nos agents de sécurité, etc., pour évidemment renforcer notre frontière. Et on a vu beaucoup d'améliorations, il y a beaucoup de travail à faire, comme on a annoncé hier, suite à l'entente qui a été finalisée entre le premier ministre Trudeau et le président Trump. Donc nous continuons avec nos investissements et c'est important de savoir que l'objectif reste toujours le même, c'est qu'on ne veut pas de tarifs, on n'en voulait pas hier et on n'en veut pas demain. Donc on investit dans notre frontière effectivement pour aider à éventuellement arriver à cette conclusion définitivement dans 30 jours. Je reviens avec des questions. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I'm joined by my colleague, Terry Duguid, one of our cabinet ministers, and of course my good friend Ben Carr is a member of Parliament from Winnipeg. We're here today with the Premier, of course, also to see the first line efforts that are being deployed by folks at the CBSA, Canada Border Services, the RCMP, our Indigenous Police Services, our provincial counterparts, our conservation officers, in what is truly a unique Team Canada approach to improving things on our border. The border is strong, but the investments we're making are making the border stronger. Our objective yesterday, which of course culminated in a release put out last night by the Prime Minister and the President, our objective yesterday was to prevent tariffs from being applied to the Canadian and American economies. Our objective today continues to be to prevent tariffs from being applied to both of our economies. And our objective tomorrow will be the same. We are moving forward on a very, very detailed plan to deal with the border in conjunction with our provincial partners, law enforcement locally, as I mentioned, a slew of other folks dealing with our American partners. And we're dealing with issues like the fentanyl crisis, for example, which is a crisis for both of our countries, both of our peoples. We're going to be cooperating on that front. We brought in a whole series of new measures yesterday. They're adding to what is already a border plan that was announced in early December. We're making progress. So once again, the objective yesterday was not to have any tariffs. Today, no tariffs, and tomorrow, no tariffs. So we're looking forward to cooperating together, looking forward to cooperating with our American counterparts, and going forward and reminding each other every day of the 150-year legacy that we've had between our countries. There's so much at stake. A lot of Canadians are concerned. I think we all understand this. But Canadians have pulled together in a way that they've really demonstrated a dedication to this country. They understand what's at stake. Constituents are calling our respective offices and they're upset. Some are in tears, wondering what might happen. And that's why we've got to continue on this Team Canada journey together to continue to manage this most important of relationships with our largest trading partner, our geographical neighbor, and our strongest ally. We have a lot at stake, and that's what we're doing together, and that's why it's important to continue these efforts, and that's why we're here today. So thank you very much for joining us.
Minister, what makes you so confident?
We're gonna work tomorrow for you.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and it's great to be here at Emerson Port, the fifth busiest port of entry in Canada.
We've got to have eyes on our entire border 24/7. And the only way we're going to do that is by working together. Working together as a federal government in Canada, the provincial government here in Manitoba, and of course with our friends from the United States of America. Using the best technology, new investments in technology that the federal government has made as part of their $1.3 billion plan. We're bringing forward conservation officer resources, motor carrier enforcement, RCMP resources at the provincial level, and then of course we have great partnerships with the Department of Homeland Security and the Customs and Border Patrol that they oversee. So working together, this is a Team Canada approach, but it's also a Team North America approach. When we bring these investments forward as a Manitoba government, it's because We want to see a crackdown on fentanyl in our communities. When we have a secure border, that benefits people in our province and in our country. And if we make those investments at a time that it helps to strengthen the relationship with the U.S., then all the better. They're our closest ally, our most important trading partner. The only time we should be cheering for different teams is when we're at the Four Nations Cup and watching hockey. The rest of the time, we should all be friends off the ice. And this investment here on this very icy part of the border, I think is a great sign of how the U.S. and Canada can work together. And the province of Manitoba is very, very happy to support. So thanks to Ministers McGuinty and Duguid, as well as MP Carr, and to everybody from law enforcement, the conservation officers, the RCMP, Border Patrol, CBSA. We really, really appreciate First Nations Police. Thank you for your service. We appreciate what you do.
Good.
We'll open it up to questions one at a time, please. We've got about 10 minutes.
Minister McGuinty, what makes you think that 29 days from now, there's not going to be another demand unrelated to security at the border or tariffs? What makes you so confident?
What makes us confident in the government now is the level of cooperation, participation, the teaming that's going on here as we wrestle these challenges to the ground. We're laser focused here on practical measures. We're getting this job done. We're going to be really wrestling this fentanyl scourge to the ground. It's a tragedy for so many families. Where will we be in 29 days? That's up to the president. But let's be honest about something, okay? The president of the United States ran in an election. And he won the election fair and square. And he has a platform that he's delivering in his own way for the American people. We're going to continue to manage the relationship we've had with the United States for 150 years as best we can. We owe it to the Canadian people. We owe it to the American people. And the fentanyl crisis is one area where we have joint cooperation. The measures that were announced yesterday are very much about cooperating between our countries and between ourselves here in Canada. That's why some of these measures are already underway. Some of them are starting this morning. They're going to be rolled out in the next week or two. So we are convinced good efforts will prevail, good faith and goodwill. There's a lot at stake here. This is not naive. This is real. This is the largest economic relationship in the world. We have a choice to make between two countries. We can win-win or we can lose-lose. We think it's better to win-win.
Mr. McGuinty, Tim Orderani from the Globe and Mail. What exactly will the fentanyl czar do? Can you explain to us exactly what's happening here?
The nature of the fentanyl crisis is one that it finds its way into many different parts of society and requires a very multi-jurisdictional and multi-pronged approach. So, for example, the new fentanyl czar is going to be involved in pulling together, obviously, our law enforcement, obviously, our local law enforcement, our attorneys general, our provincial counterparts, Health Canada's new laboratory systems that are being stood up so we can track and trace the source of precursors coming from different parts of the world that are being used to make the fentanyl. It involves our global affairs folks because it obviously involves international relationships with China, with Mexico, and beyond. So that fentanyl czar role will be involved in helping to pull all of this together so we can get over any hurdles and execute on a plan that involves minimizing, if not eliminating, fentanyl from Canadian soil.
How much fentanyl is actually going across the border from Canada into the U.S.?
Well, that's a very interesting question for folks to just remember for a second. Less than 1% of fentanyl entering the United States is coming from Canada. In a 12-month period last year, 43 pounds of fentanyl was apprehended by American authorities crossing into the United States from Canada. 43 pounds. During that same 12-month period, 21,000 pounds were apprehended coming in from the southern border. So Canada has a continuing challenge. But most importantly, Canada and the United States have a joint continuing challenge to deal with this crisis. Fentanyl is an extremely dangerous drug. It's lethal. And at some points of time in Canada, based on per capita population, there are more Canadians dying from fentanyl than there are Americans dying from fentanyl. A point that we made very clear for the White House. And so it's very important for us to come at this together. There is no isolation when it comes to fentanyl. We've got to do this together.
Minister, why designate cartels as terrorists? Why designate cartels as terrorists?
The designation of cartel as terrorist under the criminal code is going to give us additional powers to effectively, to be really simple in English, the language about it, follow the money.
Are you talking
It's going to
about
give us.
Mexican
It's going to
drug
give.
cartels
It's going.
here?
It's going to be giving our government, our law enforcement authorities, forgive me, more powers to exercise to track the money, follow the assets, and disrupt the activities of cartels. I'm really proud of the fact that the RCMP over the last 6 years has actually found and disbanded 47 fentanyl labs, including the largest fentanyl super lab in Canadian history, where they found 95,500,000 lethal doses of fentanyl. This is not simply a Canadian phenomenon. It's happening elsewhere. So we're going to give our law enforcement folks the authority they need to continue to do their jobs.
On the position of the czar, was this a suggestion that originated in the United States? Because we're not even using the terminology czar.
No,
Typically
not
how we
no,
stuff in Canada.
not to my knowledge. I was in Washington last Friday meeting with White House officials, and the question or the language around this was not something that we had discussed. I would tell you, though, that it's an integrative role. It's someone who's going to help pull all of this together for us. We've just got to get this better.
So who might that be? Who are you looking for? Who's...
That's to be decided. We'll have more to say about that by the end of the week.
A few more questions, guys.
Did you say more than 10,000 border personnel? Who are they? Are they going to be new positions?
Look, under the border plan, a number of new positions are contemplated and have been created. We're talking about the RCMP, we're talking about the CBSA, we're talking about our provincial counterparts, we're talking about different police forces in Ontario and Quebec, right here in Manitoba, as the Premier mentioned earlier. Thank the appropriate parties. If you calculate this and put it together, it's just under 10,000 or slightly over 10,000 people who are actually on that border right now. So this is an all hands on deck plan that we're executing together, because there's just simply too much at stake not to get this right.
On fait la question en français.
Le rôle du tsar et quel profil de personne on cherche? Un agent des services frontaliers?
On va chercher quelqu'un, évidemment, avec crédibilité, qui a d'expérience pour ramener ensemble les joueurs qui sont impliqués dans cette chasse au fentanyl. C'est extrêmement important de procéder ensemble, en équipe, parce que c'est un problème sociétal, c'est pas un problème seulement qui vient de la Colombie-Britannique ou du Québec ou des États-Unis. Non, c'est un problème maintenant nord-américain, et ça va prendre quelqu'un avec la maturité, l'influence pour ramener ensemble les joueurs pour effectuer le plan.
Il manque de personnel à GRC ici au Manitoba. Est-ce qu'on pourrait demander à l'armée peut-être de venir donner un coup de main ici?
Écoute, ça c'est une discussion qui pourrait toujours avoir lieu, mais à ce moment-ci, on a amplement de personnel. J'ai pas du tout compris les commentaires de M. Poilievre hier. Je ne sais pas ce qu'il veut faire. Je ne sais pas s'il a l'intention de militariser notre frontière, mais je suis contre.
If destructive was used, if the tariffs are imposed, how would that be destructive to the Canadian side, would you say?
If tariffs were used?
Yes, if tariffs were used, yes.
Well, look, we know the knock-on effects of tariffs. You saw it in the stock exchange yesterday in the United States. We know that it will contribute to increasing prices, cost of living will increase, inflation will go up. This isn't the traditional way that Canadians and Americans iron out their differences. We want to move forward together and continue to prosper. We've had probably the most prosperous trading relationship in human history, certainly in modern history, for 150 years. 400,000 people a day go back and forth between our borders. Billions of dollars of trade each and every day. We win together and we lose if we pull apart. So it's very important for us to keep focused on the growth of our economies. We understand that the President has made commitments to the American people. We respect that. But we believe that there is a way to achieve this without tariffs.
Last question over there.
Concern that the goalposts just don't shift in 30 days' time.
Look, trying to project out where the White House might be in 30 days is I have to be honest with you, I just don't have that kind of luxury of time. We are focused on implementing the plan, and we're moving forward. And I think it's also good for Canada. It's good for Canada to deal with the fentanyl crisis. It's good for Canada to make sure that our borders are safe and efficient and secure, and at the same time can handle and process the trade that we're trying to grow. So, look, the president will continue on his path. We respect that. We're duly elected, legitimately elected. We are executing on a plan here, and we're moving every day forward in terms of achieving those goals.
You gotta go, guys. You gotta go.
$200 million be used?
Sorry, what was the
You've
question?
announced the $200 million for this plan. Can you tell us how those?
We'll have more to say about the details in that plan. That's a plan that involves some deep, detailed intelligence sharing between Canada and the United States.
Okay, guys, that's all time we have.
This is the audience for today is one person, and that is Donald Trump.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Would you say the audience for today's show and tell episode is one person, and that person is Donald Trump?
I would say that would be the wrong interpretation of today. I think the interpretation of today is that Canadians should know that we have a very strong border and we're making it stronger. Canadians should know that we're cooperating between different orders of government. Canadians should know that their efforts to stand up for Canada are not in vain. Canadians should know that our relationship with the United States is strong. Canadians should understand that our economies are connected. Canadians, this is what this day is about today. Reminding each other in a Team Canada approach, we can do this, we will do this, and that's why we're here to take a look at the investments and how well they're working for us now.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
That's all. We don't have more time. That's it.